set up here then? You guys, James,
Oh, yeah.
is Big Alvin showing up or what?
Sorry?
Is Big Alvin showing up?
I know. What's up, Wayne? And they're getting my best side.
All right.
Which one's that? My back side. Hey, even that side. Nothing.
How's it going?
Bad, how about you?
Great.
Thought I'd make an appearance.
Pardon me?
Thought I'd make
Oh, why not? Why not? Keep public hungry, you know. But limiting the offenses.
yeah. Keep them guessing.
So, happy with you. Sorry?
Your little thing is falling down. Well, you know there's a pill for that.
Oh, it is. There is. There we go. See, I didn't even need a pill. Brute
Nice.
force, and I could keep it up. Brute force. Well, we'll get back to him when, because I told him
Okay.
it would probably be, because when we talked about
Yeah,
when
April
was
1st.
it the, yes, yes, we talked about it, but yes, that's, yeah.
Yeah, let's confirm that.
Yeah,
and
so,
then
so,
I'll-
so, yeah, so we should probably get in touch with him to make sure that that time is still on. And
Okay.
for him.
You want to phone them then? You,
Yeah,
then
I'll
just
give
let me know and I'll do a little input.
I'll give him a buzz either if I get back to the office this afternoon or
Or should we?
uh,
We should do it Facebook.
do both. Well, I mean, just a matter of hitting the button basically. So.
Well, not quite. A little bit more involved in it. Well, just
Well, I suppose, yes, yeah, yeah, because I was going to say, because you can't just, I was going to say on Facebook, yeah, you just stick it up to one and of course, but it doesn't go. Not
You'd
like,
have to-
not like on email, it's kind of just kind of go.
well, there's
here.
a lot of media out there that already have Facebook pages, like for
Oh, yeah.
sure,
Oh, yeah.
and liking them.
Yeah.
You got a Facebook page?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are we having? You must be.
I think we were. Actually, I saw Jane's name just pop up. I'm counting out things later, but I think I'm friends with you.
looking at, it's probably a year or so out, they're gonna redo all the
Right,
video
I've
stuff,
heard.
then we'll be able to just
Well, I
tie
mean,
into that.
these cameras, I remember when they put these things in, I mean, they're basically,
They're CCTV cameras.
Yeah.
yeah, you know, they're good for recording the fact that an image moved, and that's about it.
Like,
Yeah.
Tell all the counselors they're under observation, man. You're under surveillance. Great, one false move, we got you on camera.
Because I hit that one, and that told me. My brother's become a dog. Oh, my sister-in-law become a dog too. Not here. That's the dog.
No, because you know why I won't print? If you ask me to print you, my IN account will say no. I say no to every journalist.
Oh, whatever this one is, whatever.
No, that's my personal. Okay. Then I have another account for info news,
Okay.
which I've tried to develop a network where I can go out and ask people questions.
Okay.
Right. So I purposely don't.
So,
If you ask me to friend you, I'll say no.
okay.
Because you're a journalist.
Okay.
No offense.
No.
So, a couple months ago, I went, hey, this the motorcyclist is in a crash. We would like to talk to him. Friends, they're not like friends.
No, friends.
Also for people I know through
Professional.
Yeah, and right away we had an answer. It's like, but if I had all my journalist friends on there, they would all fucking know what I'm up to. Anybody. So that's why don't be offended.
And I don't even know that.
Well, they're suggested.
Yeah. Well, no, these are actual people who. That was a principal of my kids' elementary school. Doesn't know who that is. That's actually. Well, Anthony Hunt's son. Who I don't know.
Anthony, that's how you found me.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's. Yeah.
3-year-old.
No, I don't think so. Like, not that.
Oh.
But he is. It's funny. But like United Kids. I have no idea. I think I told you United Kids.
You know what? As a journalist, I mean, hundreds.
Oh, I didn't like.
Do they know?
I haven't got like.
You're a popular guy.
Grade slow.
Prom here.
Says the man with the account that he won't let other reporters be friends with.
No, you know what? Go turn me on my other account. I have got no problem with that.
I'm already a friend there.
There you go.
Coming back from Brandon. When did she go to Brandon? No, just because David Wiley's there?
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, so Lenny's there, but so is Matt.
Some tiny. It was some like little 3-line thing that you could bug on down.
Oh, yeah. No, these are Fortis reporters.
Talk about keep these.
These are Fortis reporters. He feeds us the questions. Because he now knows the questions to ask. I suggested we all wear tinfoil hats on his first day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallit,
Yeah.
the guy that ran for the wacky party when he was on Kelowna.
Ran for the what party?
The wacky party. He was one of the top 3 for them. Folks wanted to build a movie.
Carol Grant?
Not Carl Brand, the guy. He's his name now.
Now?
Yeah, the Canal folks. He was one of the funny for that party.
Oh, lovely.
They try to have things like electrical power.
Yeah.
And she was in
Well, you know,
Mexico.
the funny thing is, we're in West Kelowna. Nobody cares anymore.
I remember when I lived on
Oh, yeah.
about 6 years ago,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but it was like huge.
Beavers crushing the elder abuse story, sigh. That's Marshall.
Is he abusing others?
What?
Is he abusing others?
No, just Beavers is such a well, the chick got pulled up on
Yes.
stage or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that story.
Yeah, and then we had another story about elder abuse.
Obama's time to Trudeau.
Councillor Don. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So now we move into committee reports on the agenda, and there's just one of those, and today it's to announce the 41st Annual Civic and Community Award finalists, and for this report we have Amber Gilbert. Amber, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to announce the finalists for the City of Kelowna's 41st Annual Civic and Community Awards. As you know, the awards are to honor and recognize local volunteers, businesses, artists, athletes, and environmentalists for their contributions to the City of Kelowna from the past year. Here, our steering committee and chair of our sports selection committee is Wayne Moore.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Wayne.
Good afternoon. Don't know who I am. I'm Wayne Moore with the Sports and Steering Committee, as Amber mentioned. And it's my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 41st Annual Civic and Community Awards. First of all, the Bob Giordano Memorial Award, which is for Coach and Sports Administrator of the Year. The finalists are George. The Brian Award finalists. Olympic softball team, the Kelowna Rockets 2014-2015 hockey team, and the Okanagan Sun 2015 football team. The male and female athlete of the year finalists are male athlete finalists Jerome Blake, Will Dean, and Ryan Moffat. Our female athlete finalists Olivia Gran, Kira Smith, and Heather Wertel. Award finalists, this is for the top male and female high school athletes. Our male finalists are Nicholas Rietzma, Parker finalists, our young male finalists are Stuart Isherwood, Nicholas Caban, and Miles Matilla. Our young female finalists are Janaea Copperthorne, Maya Gay, and Kelty Slaney. Our Teen Honor in the Arts Award finalists are Emily Friesen, Lauren Mayer, and Clara Swan. The Honor in the Arts finalists, Stephen Buck, Lori Koss, and Rosemary Thomas. The Central Okanagan Foundation Volunteer Organization Woman of the Year Award finalists, Kathleen Holton, Kathy Jennings, and Lorena Mead. The Fred Macklin Memorial Man of the Year Award finalists, Ragwa Gopal, Terry Scott, and Alan Strachan. The Corporate Community Award finalists, our small to medium business finalists are Boyd Auto Body and Glass, Orange Fitness, and Rambo Mechanical Limited. The Corporate Community Award finalists for large businesses, McDonald's Restaurants of Kelowna, Credit Union. Champion of the Environment finalists for individuals, Gabe Sipes, Michelle Hamilton, and Hugh Westheiser. For businesses, it's Boygeese Energies and Services Canada and Unless Market. And those are our finalists, as it is every year. It's a tough selection for each of the selection committees. Some of the people that didn't make the finalists could very easily be finalists in any year. So tickets go on sale today. As a matter of fact, you can phone 250-469-8811, and the cost is $25. And for, wait a second, let me move that down. And again, the 41st Annual Civic and Community Awards taking place at the Kelowna Community Theatre on Wednesday, April the 27th. And that's our list of finalists.
Thank you, Wayne. Go to our council representative for the Civic Awards, Councillor DeHart.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, it is. Thank you, Wayne. It's really a pleasure to be on this committee. I just have to tell you that. It is right from Wayne and committee members for all the different committees that we have, to Amber and the staff. They do an absolutely fabulous job. We get a lot of emails, like they really keep us informed, and it's really great. A lot of work goes into these awards. I don't know if people know how hard it is really sometimes to get people to come forward, not just that to have them come forward, but to have nominations come forward. And the nominations committee worked very, very hard on this. And I just wanted everybody to know that. And they do that on their own volunteer time. And Wayne, you've been a big champion for many, many years. And I'm sure that sometime along the road we're going to see your name up in lights somewhere, but it's been a big champion. I also wanted to mention the mayor's reception is going to be April 17th, and that's something that we do for the people that are nominated. So I'm really looking forward to the event on April 27th. I know Mayor and Council is. And again, a big shout out and thank you to everybody on this committee, from myself and Council and the Mayor. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor DeHart. Councillor Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to echo Councillor DeHart's comments to the committee. It's a phenomenal committee, and they've worked really hard. And I just wanted to also just take 1 second and acknowledge Wayne Moore, because I think it's Wayne's been there for years and years and years, and it's your dedication to sports in Kelowna, but also your dedication to Kelowna that's had you there for many years. So we're very lucky to have you. And I was jokingly saying to Wayne before the meeting that probably Wayne and I are probably two of the few remaining people in the community that were actually in the media when Brian Cooling was active and doing his thing. And so it's appropriate that Wayne would announce that today. So I just want to thank you, Wayne, for all your work over the years, and it's good to see you still involved. Thanks.
Councillor DeHart.
Sorry, Your Worship, I did forget something. I had it written down. Also, the Anita Tozer Award is a very special award that all of Council presents. It's unanimous, and I just wanted to tell everyone that that is a surprise award, and that we will be giving that out at the night of the Civic Awards on April 27th. And we've made that decision, but we're keeping it secret.
Thank you, Councillor DeHart. I have a motion to receive the information, moved by Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Sieben. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Albert. So now we move on to development application reports and related bylaws. Item 4.1 on the agenda is for property located at 909 Juniper Road, which was formerly known as 1035 Hollywood Road South. And this is an OCP Amendment 15-0014 and a rezoning application Z15-0043. And this is a supplemental report to consider a developer proposed alteration to a bylaw previously given first reading to amend the official community plan to change the future land use designation of the subject property and to rezone the subject property to facilitate a single and two dwelling housing subdivision. Ryan Smith, over to you.
Your Worship, there's a again, just to remind Council, the subject property is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's located on Hollywood Road, and the reason the address has changed is because the subdivision has now gone through to subdivide the back portion off this property. So that subdivision could happen in advance of the rezoning because the subdivision met the requirements of the existing zone today. So the application now only applies, the reason for rezoning only applies to the rear of the property. So again, Council gave the previous bylaw first reading, and again, the applicants triggered some amendments to this, just some minor tweaking, which basically allows one additional unit on the site. So rather than 37 units, the project becomes a 38-unit project, and it's one additional unit in a duplex building is all that we're talking about. So staff have worked that out. Rather than go ahead to public hearing and have some minor glitches with the plan, staff chose to go back and get it right the first time now. Staff are recommending that Council endorse the amended application and that it be given initial consideration and forwarded to a public hearing.
Thank you, Ryan. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to forward this to a public hearing, but before that, I also want to say, have we heard from any of the neighbors in that area about issues such as parking, green space, and so on?
Your Worship, during the neighbor consultation that the applicant has to do, some neighbors did express concerns with the application, and I believe those would come forward in more detail at the public hearing.
All right, Your Worship, I'd be happy to forward it when the time's right.
Thank you. Councillor Stack? Oh, you second the motion? Okay, so I have a mover of staff's recommendation, Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Stack. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So item 4.2 is to amend bylaw number 11194 at first reading in order to change the future land use designation of the subject property located at 909 Juniper Road to facilitate a single and two dwelling housing subdivision.
Your Worship, moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Don, that bylaw number 11,194 be amended at first reading by deleting the old legal and replacing it with the new legal, and deleting the current map A and replacing it with the new map A to clearly define the zoning changes, and that the bylaw as amended has been considered in conjunction with the city's financial plan and waste management plan.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that then gets us to item 4.3 on the agenda, to amend bylaw number 11195 at first reading in order to rezone the subject property to facilitate a single and two dwelling housing subdivision.
And your worship, moved by Councillor Dunn, seconded by Councillor Hodge, that bylaw number 11,195 be amended at first reading by deleting it with the updated one and deleting the current map B and replacing it with the new map B to clearly define the zoning changes.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Now we move on to item 4.4 on the agenda. This is for property located at 4380 Lakeshore Road and 570 and 600 Sarsons Road. This is development permit application 16-0021. Mission Group Homes Limited is the applicant, and this is to consider the form and character of Phase 4 construction of a 65-unit multifamily complex at Southwind at Sarsons. And for this report, we have Terry Barton. Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. The subject property is located in the Lower Mission neighborhood at the corner. This is the at Sarsons, originally approved by Council in 2005. The subject property photo shows the existing development on at Southwind at Sarsons, with two large condo buildings already constructed over the years, as well as townhomes around the edge, effectively creating a transition to the existing single-family neighborhood. The area in red represents the last phase in the area under consideration today by Council. Here's a photograph of the street view of the property that is under consideration today, being vacant in nature, and again the last phase of the development. These are the existing condominium buildings that exist there today, 3 and 4 stories in size. Under consideration today is a 65-unit condominium project, currently under the existing zoning, which is RM3. The proposal for the condominium building would be 3 stories in height and a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units range between about 800 square feet in size to upwards of about 1,000 square meters. 1,000 square feet in size. The project is supported with an underground parkade, providing the majority of the parking, as well as a small surface parking lot for visitor parking. There are no variances required, hence why the DP is being read this afternoon during the Monday afternoon meeting. The site plan that the developer has submitted is shown here and included in your council package. The condominium building is shown in red, L-shape in nature. The L-shaped building is important to point out. It provides the appropriate streetscape building form along Lakeshore Road, and as well takes advantage of the site and the internal road that it faces out on towards. It also provides internal opportunities for a green space and garden area and landscape area that I'll show to council what that looks like in a few seconds here. The main access will be from the private driveway to the north, and as well the other arrow shows where the underground parkade entrances will be located. The black arrows show the dominant pedestrian access points, the main entrance from the internal road to the north, as well as an entrance off the back end to be able to access the green amenity area. The area in yellow is the surface parking lot area that represents convenient public parking for visitors. And the green star area, of course, represents the amenity for the entire Southwind at Sarsons development that this building will have access to. Under consideration today is the form and character of the multifamily building. The building will have a low roof profile with large timber beams and soffits that are consistent with the style of the previous buildings. The envelope of the building will be surfaced with stucco with an earth tone palette. As shown here, as the colors range from grays and light taupes to beiges and browns. The proposed colors help to break up the massing of the building. They are different yet complementary to the previous buildings. The private balconies will have metal and glass railings. The ground floor also has walk-up units that are oriented out towards Lakeshore Road and as well to the internal private driveway. And the proposed fence will delineate the property line with the city sidewalk. It will have stone-faced columns, and this is consistent with the previous phase. As a reminder, here's a picture of the previous phase, again showing those stone columns and fencing, and again the streetscape along Lakeshore Road, which will provide a continuous theme under this application. Here are the renderings that the applicant has submitted, showing again the general form and character of the building. This is one of the best pictures of the private amenity space that is provided within the overall development. In the theme of a Japanese garden, there's a series of ponds and green spaces and passive landscape areas for the local residents. A landscape plan has also been submitted by the applicant as a requirement, showing the general green space and tree plantings for the building. This is all consistent with the zoning bylaws requirement for landscaping. Your Worship, that concludes my presentation. Staff are recommending to Your Worship that the development permit be authorized. It meets the intent of our OCP, including the urban design guidelines for the area. It is similar in character to the existing buildings, yet does provide some different building materials that should be complementary. It's integrated in terms of the outdoor amenity space to the existing green space area, and again, there are no variances requested. It fits within the parameters of the existing zoning bylaw. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Terry. And just maybe a quick question as a reminder to the public. Could you just talk about the Lakeshore Road frontage and what's required of the developer, and maybe explain, DCC road versus non-DCC road, and just what the expectation is, because we know along other sections there is a active transportation corridor. Just tell me, if you could just remind us all how that all fits together.
Your Worship, the developer will be responsible for paying cash in lieu for the sidewalk, boulevard, curb and gutter, the green space areas along Lakeshore Road. Cash in lieu is, the city is requiring the applicant to be paying cash in lieu, because this is also a city DCC road, and also one that is in the city's capital program over the next few years. Many of the other sections along Lakeshore Road have recently been upgraded, and so the money that's being paid for in the cash in lieu will supplement the city's capital project for this section when it goes forth sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I gather, because we're just talking about the DP, that we probably will not be hearing from the proponent himself, just the staff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess I have to ask you the question. Hopefully you have the answer. As always, I'm always somewhat excited whenever I realize that Mission Group's involved in a project. But I look at the pictures, and it surprisingly lacks the green that I normally would expect in a Mission Group project. And yet I look in the artwork, page 47 of the package that we've got with all the multiple pictures. Lovely pictures of that one right there. And apparently this is the Japanese gardens. So I guess, my questions are, that looks lovely. But when I go to page 52, when it's on the sustainability checklist.
Just remind us of the page numbers at the top.
Well, there is no page numbers at the top, unfortunately. I'm looking for that. But page 52 of the sustainability checklist, the first page of the sustainability checklist, and it lists all the things that are checked off that are here. But when I look under the environmental sustainability, there's no, it says there's no environmentally sensitive area to protect, but it doesn't mention anything to do with environmentally sensitive areas looked after, LEED, built green, environmentally sensitive areas such as green roofs, rooftops. So there's no real information at all about what we're looking at in the way of that water site. If it's not a sensitive ecosystem or protected area, is it a soft contained unit? Is it will there be fish in there? Is it plant life? I'm just looking at the appeal from a DP perspective. Looks nice. Is that what we're going to get, and what to be expected of that?
Yeah. Your Worship, let me clarify. First and foremost, the amenity is for the overall development, and obviously this being the last phase, this amenity has been enlarged, already put in, and is existing there on site today.
Okay.
And so the commitment level for the developer, I would say, is almost certain. And so this what's under application today is a little bit further of the upland area. It will create a larger landscape area in addition to what's there today, and will be incorporated into the overall feature. And so there's, I say, great confidence that this amenity will be provided for all residents in the area. It's, again, just to clarify, it's not an environmentally sensitive area.
No,
This
I
is a
would-
pond in terms of being, I would say, ornamental in nature. And so, again, when, in reference to the sustainability checklist, it's not being picked up as an environmentally sensitive area or a habitat area. The gardens that were provided were from a botanical manicured perspective, not necessarily from the objective of protecting sensitive ecoscape or ecosystems and along those lines.
So perhaps be another category or two in the checklist. Because, I mean, it's great, I'm glad to see what we got, and I know it's not a protected area because it's being created. However, there's still no place on our checklist to kind of mention that. So I appreciate that, I just wanted to make sure that what we're seeing is what we're getting, and I guess we've already got it, so that's a good thing. Perfect, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor DeHart.
Oh, sorry, Your Worship, I was going to shut off my light. My question was what you answered right off the bat, so thank you. Or you asked, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stack.
Thanks, Your Worship. My question was just in reference to, is this a new strata or is this a continuation of the existing stratas that are existing on that property? Do you know? And the nature of my question goes to, this is a DP that we're doing today, but is there any consultation with the existing neighborhood?
Your Worship, maybe I could field that one. I've worked in the background over the last couple of years with the Mission Group and the Southwind Strata. In order to have this be a phase of the existing strata, the original developer in the Mission Group had to make an application and have the Supreme Court amend their original phase strata plan behind the scenes. So the strata for Southwind agreed to that amendment after some back and forth with the Mission Group in terms of the unit mix on the side and how the parking would be treated. So there has been consultation behind the scenes with the existing support that the amendment to the Form P, which would then allow us to get here today for the development permit. So the answer is yes, this will be a phase of the existing strata. It's the final phase of the existing strata, and yes, there's been consultation with the existing strata.
Good. So I assume with no comment from them that I can assume that they're supportive of this moving forward.
That's correct, Your Worship, from the discussions we've had with the Strata Council.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say, really glad to see this moving forward. You know, that part of town is looking like it really does need a facelift. And that particular section, just wondering what timelines are we looking at over here, Terry, or do you know? For completion, if this should go through and if it...
Your Worship, in terms of the building construction, the applicant will begin immediately, as the indication that he's told us. So this will be under construction this spring and summer.
Councillor Don.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just something new for me, just the 6.5 on the development permit talks about the school district. It talks about a school site acquisition charge. Can you explain how that works? Does that go to the city? Does that go to the school? Like, what's the mechanics for that?
Yeah, Your Worship, it's similar to our DCC program, but not the same. But conceptually, you can think of it the same. And it's a charge through it's a charge for future school acquisition that comes back to the school district for them to be able to acquire future schools. This was brought in just a few years ago and is a different tool and mechanism to how they used to take land, which is through dedication of 5%. And so it's similar in terms of the mechanics towards how our Park DCC program would work.
So basically it goes to the school district to fit their capital plan, whatever they have.
Your Worship, that's correct. The school district manages the funds for their future school site acquisitions.
Okay, yeah, no, it seemed kind of new. So the only other thing was just a clarification. So Lakeshore used to be a 4-lane, now it's a 2-lane. Is it 2-lane? Is it a 2-lane plus an active corridor for the DCCs? Is that how how does that work? Like, have we already designed it based on the designs we have for the first part of Lakeshore and? Yeah, the rate of DCCs.
Your Worship, to clarify, the road cross-section over I'm going to say the past 10 years has hopped around a little bit.
Yeah.
Ultimately, over the last 5 years, it was determined to be a 2-lane cross-section. At major intersections, there would be left-hand turn lanes provided, called that a 3rd lane. There also would be sidewalks on both sides, and the multi-use corridor would be on the Lakeshore Road side.
Okay.
And again, in an effort to promote biking and walking, the 2-lane cross-section for vehicles was favored, and the active transportation corridor, rather than, say, providing a four-lane vehicle cross-section.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a mover of staff's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Sieben, seconded by Councillor Singh. Any further discussion? I'll just quickly say that really happy to see this come forward and to see this this development come to fruition, and particularly along the Lakeshore Road frontage. It'll be nice to see that area, that lot be built on, and like I say, this project finally complete. So thank you to the applicants. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. So now we move on to non-development reports and related bylaws. The first would be item 5.1 on the agenda, and this is to present the Volume 2 Carryovers 2016 Financial Plan to Council for approval and inclusion in the 2016 Financial Plan. And for this report, we have George King. George, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Your Worship, and members of Council. The Volume 2 of the 2016 budget contains the carryover program, which is presented to Council for approval and inclusion into the 2016 Financial Plan. The total carryover program for all funds is $149 million, made up of $3 million in operating carryovers and $146 million in capital projects. This is an increase of approximately $26 million from last year's level and is mainly related to capital carryovers. Both the operating program and capital projects requests for carryover were reviewed and approved by the senior leadership team. Approximately 61% of the 2016 financial plan carryovers or $91 million are attributed to projects or programs provided from the general fund. The balance of the program, $58 million, is directly related to self-supporting funds. That would be your water, wastewater, or airport. It is important to note that carryovers do not add to taxation demand for 2016. Your Worship, in the carryover volume, there is a summary of 2016 large carryover projects. The first slide here shows the operating programs greater than $100,000. And here is a list of the capital projects greater than $500,000. Each carryover request is submitted with a reason why the project is carried over, and they are separated into two columns, one for multi-year projects and one for other, for everything else, which includes reasons such as delay in scheduling or in waiting environmental approval. Looking at this year's carryover projects, the largest area is multi-year projects, which are projects that Council have already approved the funding in order to tender the project, and knowing that this project will take several years to complete. The 2016 total is $127 million, or 95% of the total for the large projects in the carryover program. The largest projects in this this year include the airport drive to 1.6 million passengers at $48.1 million, John Hindle Drive at $9.8 million, the expansion of the library parkade at $4.5 million, construction of the memorial parkade at $13.8 million, and finally the new police services building on Costin at $39.9 million. The other column contains projects that were delayed due to scheduling demand, projects under negotiation, awaiting delivery, or environmental approval. This makes up $6.9 million, or 5% of the total large projects in the carryovers. Your Worship, this final slide that I'd like to direct you to is a summary of the last 3 years of carryovers, which is also located in your carryover volume. Note that the overall total for carryovers for 2016 is $149 million, which is $26 million, a great increase from 2015. As previously mentioned, this increase is mainly attributed to a few large capital projects. That would be the airport drive to 1.6 million passengers, John Hindle Drive, and the library and memorial parkades. The overall split between the operating carryovers and the capital carryovers has remained similar. The split between general and utility fund carryovers has changed in that utility funds carryover has increased mainly due to the airport's drive to 1 million passengers at $48.1 million. This concludes my report, Your Worship.
Thank you, George. We have some questions starting with Councillor Don.
Thanks, Your Worship. I apologize, I know it's an email, but I think we could probably handle it between the two of us.
Okay.
Just in regards to the capital projects, one of them was the Cameron House, and it had a shift from basically budget not required was the line. So essentially it says there's a council report coming back, and I don't have the page because I'm just taking a screenshot of it, but essentially what it sounds like is that we're not moving forward the 180,000, we're only counting for 125, but because there's going to be a secondary report coming to council, is that?
Your worship, that is correct. There's an expectation that a report would come to council about the Cameron House to explain how to spend the other 180 million, if council so choose to do so.
Okay. So, yeah, okay, so we'll be coming back about that, but the money's not being carried forward, therefore it would be a tax implication, is that? The question is almost like, if we know we're going to need to spend it at some point on the Cameron House, why wouldn't it be carried forward, was kind of I guess because you just, yeah.
Your worship, the funds have actually been held in reserve for the 180 million? Or
1,000. I think it'll be a big building if we got it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that'd be a really huge building.
That's good. Okay, so basically, they're still there, they're just not being moved over?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Don. George, I don't see any further questions for you, so
Great.
thank you very much. Is there a mover of staff's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Stack, seconded by Councillor Singh. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. So now we move on to item 5.2 on the agenda. And this is in regards to Mayfair Road and the extension and the off-site works that were done. And this is to reimburse stakeholders of Stremmel Joint Ventures for off-site improvements to Mayfair Road that were completed beyond the limits of their property frontage. And for this report, we have Jason O. Jason.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm here representing the Development Engineering Division to request a 2016 budget amendment to move an additional $100,000 funded from off-site and oversize to reimburse the property owner of 1211 Mayfair Road for the city portion of the works that are the Mayfair extension. You can see what I've shown on the overhead is the 2012 view. Considerable improvements have been made since this time. I'll switch that out. The subject property is just on the southeast corner of Stremmel and Mayfair. He applied for subdivision and redevelopment in 2010. It took some time to get the works all completed, and the city had an interest in the portion outlined in blue south of his property extents. The existing servicing agreement requires that the city reimburse him for the off-site works. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Jason. We have a question or comment from Councillor Hodge.
Well, I'm still trying to understand what the reimbursement is for precisely. I'm not following the bouncing ball on this one, sorry.
Sorry?
I'm not quite following the bouncing ball on this, so can you explain what the actual what does actual reimbursement entail?
Oh, of course. So we required considerable improvements on his frontage. And so the extents that are in the blue box there, you see south of his property line, these are not fronting his property. And I'll go back.
So did he do them and then?
But they paid for it.
They did it,
So
now
we're
we're
paying them back
reimbursing
for
them?
Correct, thank you.
That's just what I needed to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we required them to front end these works, and it was the city's portion.
It's as simple as that. Thank you. That's
Thank
all
you,
I
Your
needed to know. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor.
Jason. I see no further questions for you. Councillor Hodge, you prepared to move the recommendation? Seconded by Councillor DeHart. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So now we move on to item 5.3 on the agenda, and this is to present council with the final civic precinct plan for endorsement and receive direction for staff to move forward with required implementation items as described in Chapter 5 of Attachment 1 of the report. And for this report, it looks like we have Ross Soward and accompanied by Danielle Noble-Brandt. Ross.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Thank you so much for having us here today. We're very excited to be bringing back the final civic precinct plan for council endorsement, as well as to receive direction from council to move forward with the required bylaw and policy amendments to support the implementation of the plan moving forward. As you will see with our presentation today, the Civic Precinct Plan will be a visionary plan to guide change in this important area of downtown, ensuring a high quality of life for all future visitors and residents to this area. This is a prime example, Your Worship, of how the city is working toward to deliver the council's goal of planning excellence. This plan will be an important tool for council, staff, and the community to guide city decision-making and accelerate the revitalization of our downtown while strengthening our cultural district as well. The plan will provide clear direction on the following key points that are vital to the transformation of our downtown as a vibrant, people-oriented district. First off, the plan is going to provide certainty for the type and scale of growth that we'd like to see in this area over the next 25 years. It's going to signal the key opportunities for future mixed-use developments and strategic sites within the plan area to support increased activity and vibrancy. It's going to provide firm but fair rules for future development in this area, public and private, to ensure we're realizing that distinctive built environment that we want to see in this area. Further, it will provide those in the shape of design guidelines, as well as will identify the key actions that are required to really transform this area into a multimodal district, so an area that supports walking, cycling, and transit moving forward. It will also prioritize the public space improvements and amenities that are required and necessary to serve the growing downtown workforce and anticipated residential population in coming years. Before getting into the details of the plan, it's worth just taking a step back and refreshing ourselves on the overall process that we've taken for the Civic Precinct Plan. Staff is very excited to come back to council since our last presentation in early November, and really this marks about 12 months of extensive work on the part of staff, consultant teams, as well as the community and key stakeholder organizations that were involved in this process. So it's excited to be bringing this back to you guys, your worship, once again. So over the last 12 months, we've had roughly 11 major in-person and online engagement opportunities for community and key stakeholders. 9 of those have been in-person sessions, 2 of those have been online sessions, and in that same time we've had, this is our 4th major check-in with council. It's worth noting that the content presented today directly corresponds to the concept council endorsed in early November. So all of the plans, supporting policy directions, see in your report package today and that are in the final report of the Civic Precinct Plan directly correspond and flow from the vision and the concepts and the key planning and design outcomes that were identified in that November council report that council endorsed. So just want to highlight that really is kind of the thread between our last check-in with council and where we are today. Providing a little bit more background information, your worship, in terms of looking at the long-term vision and direction for this area, a key part of the process was also understanding how this area is really functioning and performing today. So what's the current character of this civic precinct area that we're trying to understand the future of? And a couple of key background points that are worth highlighting that were identified in our profile for the area that highlight really the unique opportunities and the unique challenges facing this area that are important to understand as we identify the future direction and the future priorities for this area. First off, by looking at some of the population statistics for the area, we see that the overall downtown area has roughly a density of 20 to 25 people per hectare. At the same time, the downtown plan highlights the goal of adding an additional 5,000 new residents by the year 2030, which really emphasizes the important role that the civic precinct will have in helping the downtown reach that goal of future residential and adding that vibrancy and activity to the area. At the same time, when we look at the civic precinct area with that middle map, your worship, we see roughly 53% of the plan area is currently designated for institutional uses. Those institutional uses are important for our civic uses, but at the same time, they also limit and restrict the potential for bringing in future residential opportunities and future mixed use in the opportunities. We're also seeing some additional trends in the downtown. We're seeing a growing number of knowledge-based jobs locating in the downtown in the form of IH, in the form of the Future Innovation Center, new projects from TELUS coming downtown that are adding a significant number of jobs to this area of our downtown. And the growth of employment in this area also signals the continued importance of providing housing options for future downtown workers, as well as key amenities and public spaces to support that growing downtown workforce and anticipated residential population that will continue to increase as well. Given the high public impact of this plan and the public lands that we're exploring the future of, it was critical for this project to have a very inclusive and transparent and robust community engagement process. And over the last 12 months, we've worked through 4 key phases of this engagement plan. I'm just going to highlight, Your Worship, some of the key takeaways from each of these 4 phases to help Council understand the overall kind of goals that we've had for each of these key phases and how they've continued to support our overall plan development. First off, phase 1 was really a critical phase for building broad awareness and understanding of the project. We've done this through using various online tools in the form of our online videos that we created, our comprehensive project website that we developed, using our email list that we've built through our previous downtown planning initiatives. And through all that work, it was about really trying to help the community as a whole understand why we're doing this project, some of the key objectives, and what some of the possible implications could be of this plan. So over that time, we've galvanized significant community discussion, over 15 articles or news stories. In phase 2, we moved into really looking at understanding the key issues and opportunities facing the plan area, as well as the community's values for how this area could be developed. We did this through community workshops and focus group sessions, bringing together key people in the community who had a vested interest in this area. And through this, we developed options and strategies for the areas and began to test what was possible in this area of our downtown. In phase 3, the draft plan consultation, we began to refine that plan, those ideas that were coming out of the plan based on community and stakeholder feedback that was gathered at drop-in sessions, online surveys, and presentations to key groups. Phase 4, the refinement of the plan, took place after Council had endorsed that preferred concept direction in early November, and at that point it was really about closing the loop with the community members and letting the community and stakeholders know where we had landed. So looking at that open house opportunity, as well as the opportunity for an online engagement in December as well. So through this overall process, we've engaged over 285 people in person, roughly 150 people through our online engagement, 30 different community organizations or stakeholder groups, and had thousands of people learn more about the project through our online tools as well. As I mentioned before, phase 2 of that engagement plan was really about trying to understand the key community values and key community priorities for this area of our downtown. And a key strategy that we used to do this was really about trying to bring together both stakeholders and community members at large to get that broad cross-section of the community involved in the process. So through our process, we had 30 different stakeholder organizations that were engaged, and those stakeholder organizations were very critical in participating in those community workshops and gave us that broad range of perspectives. So if you're looking at our major institutions, groups such as IH, provincial government, arts and culture, looking at groups such as the Art Gallery, the museum associations, business and economic development groups such as the UDI and DKA, downtown service providers such as Metro Community, and bringing together all of these groups at the same tables within our community workshop allowed us to have a very rich and diverse perspectives around the table and balanced discussion that was critical for helping us to understand some of the key community values for the development of this area of the downtown. Further, we supplemented that with our participation of community members at large at those key sessions, as well as our further outreach that we did through online engagement, as well as our drop-in sessions and community open house workshops that we hosted as well. So through each of those sessions, we're able to get a very well-rounded perspective of the community values in this area. And those community values, we've distilled them down into sort of 8 key themes that were really critical for us to take away from all of those community workshops and those face-to-face meetings with various members of the community. And those, these themes are very critical. So you're thinking about the themes and the values for this area and how this area will be growing in the future. This is really what we heard from the community. And so looking at things such as supporting downtown living and bringing more activity to the area, these themes and values were critical for us in terms of informing the planning and design principles for our overall plan. And these planning and design principles were the foundation for our plan, foundation for the early concepts that we took out of our workshops, and were also critical for us in terms of having a tool to be able to assess and evaluate the concepts that were coming out of our planning process early on. So you can see the transition really between those first 2 public process themes about supporting downtown living and bringing more activity to the area as directly translating into that first principle about encouraging vibrancy through a broad mix of land uses and public spaces. So for each of these principles below, you'll see threads and connections with those and the community values that came out of our community workshops. So really making sure that the work and the outcomes that came out of our community engagement were going to inform our process and inform the development of our concept plan here. So as I've mentioned, Your Worship, it was really about bringing various pieces of information and layering it on top of one another to make sure that each of these pieces of information are feeding us towards our final plan direction. So that preferred plan direction, that's something that reflects both community, reflects best practices in planning, but it also has to reflect some of the key technical constraints that we know are in this area. So constraints such as making sure that we're able to accommodate parking with this area, constraints such as making sure that we're respecting the community trust conditions in this area, constraints such as making sure that we're respecting the local development market and development trends in this area as well. So as an example, as I mentioned before, there was key values such as supporting downtown living and bringing more activity to the area. This also translated into the principle around encouraging vibrancy through a broad mix of land uses and public spaces in our area. And these ideas helped to really inform that direction around looking at the RCMP site on Doyle as an opportunity site for a future mixed-use development. But before we had the confidence to be able to recommend that to council, we needed to run that through our kind of technical analysis. So conducting a pro forma analysis of that site, working with a third-party consultant, we were able to test whether or not that site would be a viable development site in the near term and would provide a reasonable market return to the city if it were to look at that as an opportunity for mixed-use development in the area. So by doing that analysis and that due diligence, it provided a level of viability and credibility to our final plan recommendations. So when we then recommend and identify the future mixed-use land designation for that RCMP site, it's based upon this community value and a community perspective around bringing more activity, but it's also based on this technical analysis that says we know this is actually a viable development opportunity that we can move to the market and help to accelerate the implementation of the plan, and not that our plan will lack the viability to be able to implement it. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm passing it on to Danielle Noble-Brandt.
Thank you, Russ. Good afternoon, Danielle.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to have a discussion more about the mechanics of the plan. So to get started, at the highest level, the land use plan that you see before you sets the direction for redevelopment opportunities of sites that are known to have a different future potential. One of those plan goals is to consider animating the study area outside of traditional business hours with land uses or occupancies that invite all hours of vibrancy and activity. So this plan secures sites for future civic uses. It honors the boundary of the community trust and is forward-thinking about the best opportunities to explore public-private partnership potential. While opportunities to transition from institutional land use to mixed use have been carefully considered, a large portion of the study area remains institutional in nature to ensure that future community needs can be accommodated, especially those that are going to enhance and augment the cultural district. So we are going to go through 2 plans. One is a near-term illustrative concept plan, which anticipates a timeline of approximately 5 to 10 years. This is going to include the next phase of the Art Walk extension, which is anticipated to continue south from Smith Avenue down to Doyle. This is going to serve as a pedestrian spine to help pedestrians move in a north-south direction and signal the eventual civic plaza that will be a focal point for the study area within the long-term horizon. Additionally, the Bennett Plaza is going to be refreshed within this time horizon, and it's going to serve as a gateway to the cultural district. The existing RCMP site is going to be redesignated as a mixed-use opportunity with partnership potential. And this future building has an anticipated height profile of between 6 and 13 stories. This near-term plan also maintains flexibility for those long-term civic uses as our 2030 infrastructure plan continues to be refined and other community planning initiatives are updated, such as the cultural plan update that will be exploring detailed cultural space needs in the near future. And lastly, within this time horizon, we anticipate that there's going to be an enhanced pedestrian environment along Doyle Avenue that is going to be driven by both individual development opportunities and city-driven streetscape improvements. This is an illustrative concept plan of what that near-term horizon could look like. And we can see in the foreground, just to the rear of the existing Kelowna Community Theatre, the biggest kind of bold move is going to be the inclusion of a new building form at the existing RCMP site. This demonstrates the maximum height potential, but that doesn't necessarily suggest that that full height is going to be realized. It'll be obviously dependent upon whichever partnership potential chooses to respond to the market conditions at the time. When we look forward to the long-term objectives, this time horizon exceeds 10 years and goes out to approximately 25. So within this time horizon, there are some significant bold moves that we're going to see, such as the redevelopment of the Kelowna Community Theatre site as a future performing arts center. This is going to be accomplished with the development of a civic plaza that is going to be its interface at the same time that that would be constructed. We're anticipating some infill along the Costin Avenue lots, specifically those that belong to Prospera Place surface parking, and those are going to be signaled for future mixed-use potential. We're anticipating the redevelopment of the Memorial Arena site for a future civic use, and this would possibly be accommodating the consolidation of the museum facilities, and that could either happen at one of two spots, the Memorial Arena site or the existing City Hall parking lot. And pending on the consolidation of the museum sites, this would allow for that existing museum site to be a redevelopment opportunity as a mixed-use building with the inclusion of affordable housing above. And we also see that the art gallery has been signaled for future expansion adjacent to the art walk to create additional animation and activity. And lastly, we would see that the redevelopment of the existing interior health building along Ellis would be signaled for mixed-use opportunities, which may or may not include the provision for a live-work artist studio space at the rear adjacent to the art walk. Again, this is a bird's eye view of some of the big moves in the longer-term viewscape, and we can see, obviously, Prospera Place site with some additional tower development that replaces the surface parking lot, along with other strategic infill sites that aim to create a strong streetscape and public realm experience. So each of these plans has been supported, as Ross alluded to, some additional technical analysis. And one of those lenses included a parking analysis. So within this technical review, it has been anticipated that no additional standalone parkade is going to be projected for the long-term planning horizon. It's also anticipating that reduced parking requirements are going to be proposed for sites that are within 400 meters of the Queensway Transit Exchange. Future civic facilities that are yet to be determined would have reduced on-site parking requirements, but would also be looking to a comprehensive parking strategy to utilize facilities through either a shared parking agreement and optimizing their use throughout all user times. This would balance both the on-site and off-site parking needs, and this is going to be supported by an upcoming downtown parking strategy. Similarly, we have active transportation improvements within the study area that are going to be increasing multimodal opportunities and prioritizing pedestrian and cycling routes. This is primarily going to be achieved via the north-south and east-west active transportation linkages that are going to provide a heightened level of comfort and safety for all user types. So these alternative modes of transportation are going to be prioritized through both street design and overall parking management. And it's anticipated that Doyle Ave is going to be redesigned to enhance opportunities for both cycling and walking. Through this analysis, the My Downtown plan that was developed a number of years ago reinforced a building height strategy that steps height as buildings move away from the lake in a west to east direction. And the Civic Precinct plan builds on that principle. It maintains a low-rise character of approximately 6 stories along Water Street to protect views, but it assigns height at strategically set locations to encourage those mixed-use occupancies that can be parked on site, but also to achieve feasible building footprints that would conform to the updated zoning bylaw regs. So we can see where those 3 stars are on the map on the screen, or where some strategic height has been reevaluated to support the plan objectives. Through the plan development, it was critical that design guidelines be crafted to support the vision of what this area is going to accomplish. This plan anticipates a vibrant, active, and well-designed district that promotes a high level of amenity, comfort, and safety for pedestrians. So the primary objective of these design guidelines is to create, through both careful and deliberate design of both the built form and the physical public realm, an environment that is dynamic, attractive, safe, and people-friendly. So these guidelines are going to be used by private landowners, developers, as well as city staff when reviewing development applications. And they will be referred to by the city itself when designing civic, culture, and public realm improvements, including all future streetscape enhancements. It should be noted that the city's civic and cultural facilities will be landmarks that should accomplish the highest design standard. And their design and siting should take into consideration their high visibility and their landmark status. This slide is just an example of how some of these design guideline images are strategically crafted to ensure that the design, the experience of the urban environment rather than detract from the plan goals. So setbacks are going to be provided for sidewalk and landscape provisions. Podium design guidelines ensure that parking above grade is screened from the street, and tower spacing is strategic to maintain views and to limit shading on the public realm. So how do we move the plan forward? This plan is going to be advanced as redevelopment, civic investment, programming, and other improvements take place. There's going to be 4 major streams for this plan implementation to be mobilized. The first is going to be through redevelopment of those key sites over the next 25 years. Second is going to be public improvements to the public realm and transportation network that are both going to be led by the city and private sector. Third is the strategic partnerships to advance the vision of the plan and reduce the financial impact to the city and its taxpayers. And fourth is going to be through programming of those public realm spaces to animate and promote public life. The tools that the city is going to look to in order to move this plan forward are several. As mentioned, it's going to be through partnerships, updates to the zoning bylaw that are going to be forthcoming, the implementation of the design guidelines, implementation of the 2030 infrastructure plan, the forthcoming cultural plan update, the creation of a downtown parking strategy, and endorsement and implementation of the pedestrian and cycling master plan. So the Civic Precinct Plan embraces a vision that is for a dynamic community that aspires to have people live, work, play, and learn. It responds to local needs and aspirations, as well as serving as part of the city's premier urban center. This plan aspires to foster an inclusive community that celebrates culture and entertainment, showcases connections to the waterfront parks, encourages community gatherings, invites additional residents to this area, and creates strong transportation connections through a variety of modes. If we look forward 25 years, and when the plan is fully built out, it is going to provide opportunities for up to a possible 230 units of affordable housing, the inclusion of 550 units of new multifamily housing, The addition for up to 75,000 square feet of new commercial space. But notwithstanding all of this, it is going to secure 5.5 hectares of civic land for future community needs. In summary, these short-term actions will be the foundation for a long-term implementation horizon, and each decision that council and staff make will build on the previous one. Staff are going to be bringing forward bylaw updates in the coming months to translate this plan vision into corresponding policy and regulations. And moving it forward will be the cumulative impact of the proposed actions to position this area to become active and dynamic, and it requires leadership from both the public and private sectors. Council and the community should feel a sense of accomplishment and pride that this vision has been arrived at through an inclusive public engagement process and is the established building blocks of both the My Downtown Plan that is now supported by the Civic Precinct Plan. That concludes staff comment.
Thank you very much, Danielle. We have questions or comments, starting with Councillor Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Didn't think I'd be first out of the barn.
Actually, I think what might be appropriate just for this particular case is let's ask questions of staff first, and then if there's any prospective motions or comments to be made on the comment, that we do that afterwards, if that's
Sure.
the case. Sorry to throw a wrench into the procedure
No,
here, but
no,
I think it'd be more
I'll
appropriate for us to if we have debate or a dialogue, to do that after questions of staff. So,
No, that's
so let's do
fine.
that,
I'll
if
make
you're
my
okay with
comments later, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Seaman.
Thank you, Worship. And yeah, no doubt staff has put a ton of energy into building this plan out, and it definitely provides a vision for it. I guess my question is, there's 3 recommendations that we have before us. One that's the first one, which seems somewhat overarching, just to endorse the vision, goals, and policy framework of the plan. And the other 2 relate more to Chapter 5 of the Civic Precinct Plan. Can you kind of just, in lay terms, explain what exactly endorsing those other 2 recommendations means?
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, Chapter 5 or Attachment 1 talks about just next steps. So basically, we're just asking council to endorse staff moving forward on some of those implementation activities. So the next step would be coming forward with zoning bylaw updates and OCP policy amendments to support the vision of what's being presented today. So there will be some mapping updates and some corresponding zoning bylaw to make sure that the vision that council endorses is one that staff can implement.
Specifically in Chapter 5, it relates a little bit to expressions of interest for the RCMP site. Would that also be the next first step, or are there some things that would happen before then?
Your Worship, there are a few technical components that need to happen before that, such as some conceptual design of both the art walk to ensure that that final parcel configuration is confirmed before the real estate group would move forward with that next step of expressions.
Sure. Okay. Councillor Stack.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions, and I'll save my comments for after. But Daniel, when I look at the second last slide, actually, when you talk about the option for affordable housing units and of 230 and the 550 housing units, those would be housing units that are in the civic plan proper. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, because in this overall design of this area, all the way down Ellis Street, which would be east, we're also anticipating mixed-use development as well, right? In other words, that would probably, if that starts getting take-up and the community buys into that, we'll see a lot more potential housing and commercial there as well, right?
That's a very accurate point, Your Worship. Yes, so this was just in the immediate study area, contributing to the broader downtown plan boundary.
Okay, and I assume that'd be the same for the 75,000 square feet of commercial?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's just in this area?
Correct.
Okay, and then my third question is, in the recommendation for the existing RCMP site, the recommendation is that that property would be leased, like a long-term lease. So is the intent of, the logic of that is that the city would maintain ownership of that so that when the next civic plan comes in, who knows when, that would be an opportunity that could be reconsidered?
Absolutely. The city definitely wants to have a long-term stake, but this is the best of both worlds, balancing kind of that financial partnership opportunity to reduce taxpayer load.
Short-term gain, but the city still maintains a stake long-term.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Hi, Danielle. To go to page 366, it says minimize and disguise parking. Are you talking about underground, behind the structures? What does disguised parking mean?
Your Worship, many of the sites require on-site parking facilities. And recognizing that there's a high water table in this area, it's pretty much anticipated that the majority of the on-site parking is going to be above grade. But can we accomplish that parking by wrapping it or disguising it, as we will say in planning speak terms, with whether it be commercial retail uses? So if we look at the building of the Madison, for example, we know that there is a parking podium there, but at the streetscape, you would never know that because it is disguised with active uses. And so that's what that goal is to ensure that parking is accommodated on site, but not at the expense of good urban design.
So Danielle, I just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page. Basically, the philosophical approach is the same as Falls Creek, where walking, biking, and all that has been encouraged, and motor transportation is not as popular as physical activity is. Is that correct?
Your Worship, the plan definitely acknowledges that parking is a critical component to seeing this area thrive, but not at the expense of helping other modes of transportation be realized at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor DeHart.
Okay, I've got parking question too, but I'm part of that was answered. But so Danielle, on page 374, where the parking plan, it said no standalone parkade is recommended now. Is that correct? Because then you said a full-out parking plan is going to be implemented. I kind of mixed up on. There was so much here, I got mixed up. Can you explain those two statements?
Yes. So, Your Worship, there is no standalone parkade facility anticipated within the plan horizon, i.e. in the next 25 years. That doesn't mean that the downtown parking strategy to address on-street parking and how parking in general is going to be managed in this area is going to be delivered. So no additional parkades are being proposed through this plan vision, but absolutely a comprehensive parking management strategy to ensure that parking needs are deliberately thought both on-site and through public facilities is going to be one of the implementation activities that will be forthcoming.
So so it all comes together as what Councillor Singh too. So now I get that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeHart. Councillor Don.
Thanks, Your Worship. I've got a few questions and comments, so let's go through the list. But first of all, again, I used to come to do the first presentation, like, wow, we got the civic block plan, and you're trying to understand what it is, and it's amazingly comprehensive. So I guess just, I'll focus today on the cultural things. Maybe one question before getting to that is just, I kind of wish that we had a chance to jump back almost even 2 years before this, before we were talking about parkades, because it feels like if we're talking about these new buildings we need, could we have done like a parkade plus kind of thing? So I mean, those days are gone, but I just, at least that thought has been there as we talk about the civic plan. It's like, well, we got all these buildings going on. Could we have looked at them a little more, creatively and tried to not just build parkades? So, but that aside, just I think the depth of the culture that you've put into this is quite phenomenal. Seeing from the growth when we had the first presentation to the art walk, that was kind of always planned, but it's now there. So the Bennett Plaza, just even since last time you came before council, the inclusion that the art gallery expansion, I know that the conversations that they had quickly kind of going, wait, is that us included as a potential expansion? So I just appreciate you accommodating that conversation. The consolidated museum, I think that's, I know that none of these are necessarily funded, which may be a question down the road, and then just the Laurel Packing House courtyard. I think if this vision comes to fruition, we've got a very, very culturally vibrant downtown that we'll be proud of, that we already are proud of. And so I guess maybe I'll jump to, you talk about all hours of vibrancy, and then we talk about adding residential, and it's the same comment because it's the same concern. That just brings tension. And it's like, because not everybody wants a vibrant space outside of their house at 11, 12, 1 a.m. So I guess, is that part of the bylaw consideration as you move forward to go, or how do we balance that as a city through this plan, if you're talking about updating bylaws, because noise complaints, I mean, the Laurel Packing House, it was reduced its hours usage because we have towers right beside it. So is there any, how do you see that flowing from this, all hours of vibrancy plus residential? If you could talk about that, that would probably be my biggest concern to go, if we get residential, maybe we actually have less vibrancy. Yeah, so.
Your Worship, planning principles really support mixed uses. So in order to have that balance of office use, creative knowledge, but inviting people of the creative class to an area like this, market demand is going to be a significant driver in drawing populations of those socioeconomic groups that are attracted to this type of lifestyle. So across our city, we're going to have urban centers of different levels of evolution and sophistication, but the jobs in the industry, as Ross alluded to in his presentation, is going to draw a very specific profile of people that are attracted to and very drawn to that level of activity. So I think it's an organic process, and the city is never going to have a noise bylaw that addresses all the conflict concerns. But it's inherent that as cities mature and evolve and become more sophisticated, this type of urban life creates codependencies and activity that people are drawn to instead of shy away from.
Which I agree. That's kind of why I joined council. Actually, was to advocate for us allowing that vibrancy, because I think it requires us standing firm to say, no, you bought into a culturally vibrant place. So I think, yeah, I just want to acknowledge it, because I feel it's the biggest plus and it's the biggest concern as we look at that mixed use kind of thing as council and as staff to be aware of. The in regards to the, I don't know, maybe the biggest one is, do I ask the question? Yeah, the trust. It seems like the biggest undercurrent to the whole potential is the trust. And I don't think I have a question, but maybe it's more a question. The community trust just we have within our thing. If you look at the plan, it's the thing that confines our creativity the most. And I guess, yeah, there's no question or comment other than just to say, it feels like it was a half-finished conversation 10 years ago, which I wish we'd finished. And then in regards to water, is there any thoughts around water in the public space within the plan?
Your Worship, that level of detailed design will be forthcoming and would obviously be contingent on budget limitations, but absolutely.
And then the 2030 infrastructure plan that there didn't really have any of these. So do you see most of this being funded through partnerships, or like how do you see these being funded? If you look at this and go, okay, this is great, well, go tell the public, how do we pay for it?
Your Worship, in the plan, we've identified some funding streams. Those all haven't been fleshed out with certainty, but the first step is having council endorse this vision and this plan. Secondly, it will be through further conversations with council about what funding tools we choose to use other than the 2030 infrastructure plan to support this process. But as noted, partnerships are going to be part of making quicker action to realize the plan objectives.
Okay. And then last question, the Memorial Arena, it's slated on this as redevelopment. So if we endorse this plan today, essentially we're saying we will be redeveloping that at some point in the future for a civic use. Is that essentially what we're saying today?
Your Worship, we have flagged that for outside of the 10-year horizon, but yes, the plan signals that the highest and best used opportunity is going to be a redevelopment of that site.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sieben.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I had one other question, just trying to understand sort of the, I guess, analogies that we've sort of hand-drawn it in pencil, sketched in from a conceptual standpoint, and I'm not sure if we're exactly at the phase where part of it can still be erased, or if we're starting to outline it in dark marker on where it's going to go. So I'm just wondering, as we assemble these pieces, what kind of flexibility is in the plan, or are there some sites that once this is endorsed, they're moving ahead, they're being marked in? It would be my question. And would the RCMP site specifically be one of those sites that one's going to start getting a darker ink put to it?
Your Worship, the next stage is coming forward with a package of amendments for council to consider. That's going to include redesignating certain sites. Staff heard from both the community and council that maintaining a level of flexibility was very important. So that's why there hasn't been very prescriptive placeholders on the long-term plan. So when we see the label future civic use, it allows the community and council at a future point to assign a land use that the community deems as being its highest need priority at that time. So for example, when we look at the RCMP site, it's being redesignated as a mixed use opportunity, and that'll be forthcoming in an OCP amendment package. Should council at a later date decide that that's not the preferred land use and they want to make a change at a later date, this plan needs to respect the future market conditions. So just because there's a plan direction today doesn't mean that it's an irreversible one.
Okay. With that one particularly, just I see the timeline of 2016, 2017 as establish a process for expressions of interest. And I guess that for me that's of some concern if we're advancing beyond that, and not just to be able to flexible because of market conditions, but be flexible because that may not be our desire to move it to mixed use. And certainly the comments in the surveys were quite mixed in terms of the stakeholders session. I think it said 9 of 19 were actually in supportive of it. So I'm just wondering how flexible it really is from not only just a market-driven standpoint, because once you go out for expressions of interest, it's hard to put the horse back in the barn, I guess. So that's my concern with it, on how flexible is that particular component.
So Your Worship, the implementation activities, so should council choose different timing for moving forward on the RCMP site, that's certainly a future discussion that council could direct staff towards. I think, as I've shared before, just reiterating that getting the actual plan vision into the proper documents is going to be the most critical step, and mobilizing very discrete activities such as an expression of interest does have full flexibility.
Thank you, Councillor Sieben. Councillor Singh.
Thanks, Your Worship. I didn't get to it last time. Danielle, if you go to page 378, this may sound like a silly thing, but there's just one little tree sticking out in the civic precinct design guidelines. I just wondered, I thought Constable Hard would take the lead on this, but just be mindful of, I just want staff to be mindful of green space, and that's just a design, isn't it? Please tell me there'll be more green space and just one little tree.
Absolutely, Your Worship. There is a section devoted to streetscape tree planting specifically, but also there'll be cross sections for the streets that will have designated, we'll call it tree foliage. So there are multiple other ways that that is going to be enforced.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor DeHart?
Okay, so back to what Brad was saying, the package of amendments, when does that come forward, Danielle? I'm just writing a few things down here.
So Your Worship, later in this year, in the coming months, one specific package will be coming forward for council's consideration, and that will be the zoning bylaw updates and the corresponding official community plan amendments. So it'll be taking some of the visuals and the plans that you see today and translating that into corresponding policy.
Okay, and to confirm what you said, this document remains flexible, and it is, we can reverse a decision on it. It said it is, or what did I miss there? It is, remains flexible, especially because Councillor Sieben said about the RCMP site, and then I think you said is, or is it irreversible?
Your Worship,
explain that to me again.
Thank you. I'll just reconfirm.
Okay.
The land use designations that are going to be amended, so we're just going to use the RCMP site as an example.
Okay.
It is going to be amended to a future mixed-use land use designation.
Yeah.
That still is going to require a zoning at some future date.
Yep.
Should council, at a future point, decide that they would like to reassign a different use for that, we can have that discussion at a future point.
Okay.
So I just want to reinforce that there's an opportunity to have the plan respond and be flexible to future changing needs. But at this point, we're asking for general plan endorsement of the vision because each piece of this plan contributes to a bigger whole.
Right, and we have to go forward. I get perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Sieben, further question?
Yeah, just a technical question, I guess, to understand, it might be a Stephen question. The difference between endorsing plans like this versus receiving it.
Your worship, I'd say endorsing is a level above receiving, if I could put it that way. You're saying that in very general terms, not necessarily every last thing in a plan this complex, but in very general terms, council, you're in agreement with it moving forward with all the caveats that staff have just expressed.
And I guess if it was to just be received, would it restrict any movements forward?
It's a question of what direction staff would have for next step. Usually when you receive something, that's it. And so it makes it harder for staff to know what to come back with, which you'll still have opportunities to debate those specifics at that time. But if just receiving it is not really providing any direction at all to staff.
Councillor Stack, did you have a question?
Not a question, I was just wondering when we get to the comment.
Yeah,
part of
we're
your
almost there.
worship.
And I believe we are, actually, so keep your name on the list. And so we will start with Councillor Hodge. And so this would be an opportunity now for council to make comment in regards to the report. Councillor Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to staff. And first of all, to Danielle and Ross, just want to say thank you for the report. And it's extremely extensive, extremely thorough, very well done. It's also 200 pages, and it was a lot of reading. So my comments here are in no way, shape, or form reflective of the job staff have done or the report. For me, surprise, surprise, it's all about timing, largely. I guess I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm in no hurry to make mistakes because I feel pushed into something. I can make mistakes fast enough on my own. I don't have to be hurried. This report is probably phenomenal. We're probably going to go with perhaps all of it, or perhaps 90% of it. I haven't had a chance since I got this on Thursday night to digest all 200 pages, and I'm not going to pretend I have. I didn't get to read it all. I skimmed through it enough to have a pretty good idea. But there's things in here that I haven't had a chance to completely read through. And so I'm not comfortable, personally, to say, yeah, let's go ahead. There's two councillor co-workers that are here today that I think are very interested in this plan. I know that Councillor Gray was certainly very keen on where the civic block plan was going and had some thoughts on it. And not meaning to be disparaging in any way, shape, or form, I am not comfortable with the lack of time to actually digest it and come up with good questions. There are some people out in the community I'd like to be able to say, what do you think? What are your thoughts? I have had in the past an issue with the workshops and the numbers involved, but that's not to be negative about the plan. Just simply really, when you look at the workshops, there's a total of 76 people that actually responded over the 3 workshops. But I guess my point is really is to get it Thursday and be ready, prepared to move it forward today. I'm not prepared to do so. What I would like to ask my council colleagues to at least consider is to delay a decision for perhaps a week or 2 weeks. Give us a chance to hear what the community says. I know that there was a letter from the chamber expressing their concerns about this. I'm not concerned so much about the chamber's concerns or letters, and I don't mean to be insulting, but I'm not. But I would like to have the ability to go out and just discuss in general with people their thoughts. And I need a bit more time to absorb it all. And so I'm simply hoping that we could delay a decision on this for a week or 2 weeks. If that means a deferral, I hate that term because it's so negative. But that's really where I'm at. I got to be honest with you. I think, I know council has already discussed the civic block plan to some degree, and some of us are still sorting our way through that. And so my problem is I have no problem receiving it, but I'm not prepared to endorse the vision, the goals, and the framework. I'm not prepared to ask staff to move forward with the zoning bylaw and changes as put out in Chapter 5. and I'm not prepared to initiate a work plan on this yet. I'm not to say that I won't. I'm just not there yet. And so I'm just have to be honest, Mr. Mayor, that's where I'm at. And I would really like to simply delay this for a week or two. I don't see that it's going to stop the city of Kelowna from moving forward in the big picture if we delay it a week or so. So that's where I'm at, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodge. Councillor Stack.
Well, I guess in response to Councillor Hodge, I guess that'll be up to your worship to give us direction as to how you want to proceed with this. But let me speak to the plan. I actually have quite a different view. I'm very comfortable with this plan. This isn't the first time I've seen it. I mean, yes, it was a very extensive report. There's a lot of pages in there. But that's because it's been building and building and building for this last year on all the plans that have been brought to council numerous times. And I think I heard Ross say earlier that everything in this plan has been pretty much reviewed by council already and endorsed as a direction to go forward. So what do I like about this plan? Well, I think the spine that connects Clement all the way through to Queensway is spectacular. And I think it'll be an amazing resource for our downtown community as a draw for public events. I can just think of endless number of things that will go through that spine with the Civic Plaza in the middle. Securing this and moving forward with that I think is amazing. I also appreciate that the staff have considered council's direction to keep some civic uses somewhat flexible. In other words, we've asked them to be not exactly prescriptive, and so things like the future use of the Memorial Arena, exactly what will go there, we're not certain, but we are certain it will be something that supports our civic plan. And that's a very similar on a couple of sites that have been held as placemakers. So that I really like. And the RCMP, which is probably the first and foremost action, I guess, that would come out of this, I'm again reassured that this would be a lease, which is really handy because it's the best of both worlds, where the city will get resources to move the plan forward, which is what we need, because clearly we don't have the money to fund a massive project that's envisioned here, and we're going to need a lot of partnerships. But it also gives us the opportunity down the road to repurpose that land, maybe in 50 or 60 years. So I see that again as the best of both worlds. So to be honest with you, what I see today is exactly what I expected to see. When staff came before us last time, they laid it out. They gave us a very nice summary. I have confidence that most people that want to comment on this plan have had an opportunity, Your Worship, to go to the meetings, to bring their comments forward. I think it's amazing. As a matter of fact, I think it's the most consultation we've ever done on anything that I've seen. So I'm totally comfortable. So, but it's up to Your Worship as to how we want to deal with this today. I do recognize we are missing some of our colleagues our way, but from what I see, I think it's great. Let's go.
Thank you, Councillor Stack. Councillor Sieben.
Thank you, Worship. 3 different speakers, probably 3 different takes on things. Words I respect Councillor Hodge from the time thing. The time thing's probably not my concern on it. And I see things a little bit differently in terms of how prescriptive the plan was. When we first saw it unveiled the last time, I was surprised how far along it was, because we as council really hadn't had an opportunity to talk about the building blocks that were in place there. I do really appreciate staff's work in going out and reaching a few stakeholder groups that were missed at the beginning. I still, based on my own past experiences, have issues with group consultation forums. I think certain key groups, especially in an area like this where it's pretty easy to identify who are the main property owners, who are the stakeholder groups to have one-on-ones, and I know that happened after the fact. So the public engagement process, although exhaustive, even reading some of the correspondence, people who attended them had some issues with how big the groups were and how noisy the venue was. And so at the end of the day, I think the net outcome is it wasn't going to change regardless, unless you're going to have some one-on-ones with it. My big issue is the RCMP site. It is a key puzzle piece, and 50 or 60 years, I think it's great on a lease that you can do that. That's still 15, 60 years. Are we taking the low-hanging fruit of easy investment in terms of that versus looking at something more bigger and larger. I look at the community theater site, and now if you actually look at both sites and turn over each rock and say, wow, what can you do if you combine them? I just don't know if we've done that exhaustively yet. So I guess and also recognizing that we have two key councillors here, that this is one of the most important plans we're going to see in our term, without a doubt. Can we receive it now and then have it come back to us in a morning session where we could formally endorse it in more of a bit of a workshop, and we can actually push some more things? I'd probably be comfortable with that, but I appreciate the comments that the council still has the flexibility to do that, but you are kind of playing catch up at that point, and I am concerned about that. So I don't quite know what the answer is, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to endorse it.
Councillor Singh.
Thanks, Your Worship. Couldn't have said it better myself. I felt the same way. 4 different speakers, 4 different opinions. Just thought I'd say that, Brad. But I agree with Councillor Stack to a degree where I'm very comfortable with the way we're going. We're moving forward. I like the project. I recognize that staff has put in a considerable amount of time, effort, and has done consultation with the public. But I also think there's great value in having my 2 council colleagues here when we vote on this report. So I'd like to, at this stage, and I don't know, Your Worship, I look to you for guidance, I'd like to, at this stage, receive the report and have my other 2 council colleagues weigh in on it as well before we vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Don.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think, I just looked at the conclusion page. It talks about Kelowna Pianos and Parks program is often cited as an example of how the civic precinct could be animated to add cultural hub of Kelowna's downtown. Well, how that program comes to fruition is by taking a risk. I mean, that program at the essence was, hey, they might not get vandalized, it might not work, it might not go. And I think today, I'd rather just say the word let's go. That's kind of where I'm at. You know what? I get it. If I'm sick one day, I don't want the council to wait for me to move city forward kind of thing. I think really today the message is, I think there's enough. If there's something needs adjusted, I think there's that option at the council table. But when I see an art walk, a Bennett Plaza, an art gallery expansion, Consolidated Museum, Laurel Packing House Courtyard, let's go is the thought I go. I get it. There's maybe more concentration, but there's going to be lots more coming to us. And I think what we're doing today is empowering those to come to us. And we always have the chance to go, okay, this little part needs to be amended a bit, but I just think I'd rather fly forward today is my core reaction, just because already half the stuff, none of it's funded. Like, I'm sorry, I got a community theater that I'll be approving in concept, which isn't in our infrastructure plan. Like, so that's 2030. So what I have to be like, no, I don't want to wait. If I'm sick one day, keep voting as you will. But it's like, so my thought, and I'll leave it to your worship to decide where you want to go. But really, if you want a culturally vibrant place, you want an innovative place, you're taking risks. And I think we've done lots of consultations, so I'll be supportive if that's the motion on the table to endorse and move forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Don. Councillor DeHart.
Thank you, Worship. I guess everything's pretty well been said. I guess the way I look at this is that we have had a lot of information on this, and I just couldn't believe the package when we got this package on Thursday. There's been a lot of work into it. I know my feelings, and I know people's feelings are the RCMP site. It's very, very sensitive, and out of everything on the plan that we got, I think this is the most sensitivity, because we know we love the walkway. We know that that the arena is going to have to go. I mean, that's just, it's 50 years old. We know everything else, but of course the RCMP site is the one that's sensitive. I think it's sensitive to us, to staff, and it's sensitive to the public. I will actually wait and see, wait for the mayor's comments. I do feel bad that we don't have a full house here with the rest of our city councillors, but that's what happens. Unfortunately, it's just the timing. Sometimes we have just a quorum, and sometimes we don't. And I wish they were here, because I think it's kind of important that we are all here. But in saying that, there's always somebody away. There's always something happening, whether it be health or whatever. So I'm actually, well, what's that? Sorry, Charlie? Oh, okay. Anyway, I'll wait to see. No, that's okay. I thought that, just wait to see what goes on. But I I think this is a really good plan, and like I said, except just for me, just the sensitivity, but it's just sensitivity because it's been there for 50 years, and all of a sudden it's going to be a vacant lot. But I did like what you said, Danielle, about the flexibility. I mean, that to me kind of meant it all, because there is flexibility in this plan. And who knows, and another thing I wanted to say, don't forget, this is going to cost us a lot of dollars. I mean, when we were looking at our plan just last week or the week before in our 2030 strategy, and oh my God, there are so many important things and things that people really want in our city. Well, we can't do everything here without dollars. And sometimes we have to sell some assets to help out. I guess that's where we have to have the balance. Yeah, we need some dollars, and sometimes that's where we get them, because we can't expect the taxpayers to pay right out of their wallets for every new building we have. And if we can't get any funding from federal and provincial for things, well, the taxpayers are the ones that are stuck. So we might be looking at this plan a lot longer than we think. Thank you.
Councillor Sieben.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just one other point, just as I hate to be a broken record and go back to it, but I guess the one point I wanted to mention is once we go to the point of having an expression of interest, I'm concerned that once we go to the development community, put it out there, and then if council changes their mind, there's some history of that, which sometimes doesn't go over well, and I'm just very sensitive to that. So I don't know if there's a way, like I said, large in whole, the end result, I like the plan. It's the RCMP site that I feel somewhat rushed that we're doing something with. So I know the timeline is 2016, 2017, 2017. I'd certainly love to see that pushed off. I know the demolition wouldn't happen until 2017 or 2018, but even some of the pre-expressions of interest, I find that timeline too fast.
Thank you, Councillor Sieben. Just a couple quick comments from myself. I'll give my comments about the plan first, and then prospective course of action, if you will. Firstly, thank you to staff, because this hasn't been an easy undertaking, and so I want to thank you for all of the people involved in the plan, some in the gallery, some before council here, but thank you. This has been a very comprehensive report. A couple of things that really stood out for me just in reading the report were the lack of residential density in our downtown right now, and hence the reason for this plan. Because I think the last thing we want to have is a bunch of civic buildings and nobody to animate. I know that Councillor Don had made the comment about residential density and perhaps the potential conflicts, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's I think we both agree that's where we need to be going, is with the mixed use, and so I think all of those things will work themselves out. But the last thing we want is what other North American communities have seen over time is civic buildings or office space and nothing taking place at night outside of just large-scale events, which to a degree we have that happening right now in our downtown, hence, again, why we're bringing this forward. So I was really surprised at the lack of residential density, and so certainly wanting to see that increased. In regards to the buildings themselves, I know it's a tricky balance, but I think we need to be, I guess, firm but fair, which is one of our principles as a council and how we want to operate. It's a tricky balance between high urban design standards and wanting to facilitate development because we don't want a space to be dead or a lot to sit vacant. And I know it's a tricky balance between, well, they're first in the door because they want to do something, but also trying to balance but it doesn't maybe look that great. Do we wait for something better? So I was happy to see that, high urban design standards, that phrase was mentioned many times in this document. But I know it's a tricky balance between trying to facilitate development and trying to keep the standards high, but I really think that this is an area where we've got to sort of stick to our guns, if you will, because this area is so important to the future success of our downtown. But overall, I'm quite happy with the plan, and the feedback I've actually received myself personally hasn't been a lot. But the feedback I have gotten has been very positive. And so it tells me, one, that through the various channels we've used and with the media attention that this exercise has received, I don't necessarily think it's as hot button as we're maybe trying to make it. And I don't think that we're going to get any more feedback than what we've already received. So in that regard, I'm actually quite comfortable moving forward with the plan as proposed. Now, in regards to the two missing council colleagues that we have, I would be a little bit more concerned if this was the first time that they had seen this, but as Councillor Stack pointed out, there's been many touch points with council, so I'm not as concerned about the fact that they're not here. Also, they did have an opportunity, they did get their packages, they did have an opportunity to be able to provide myself or the city clerk with feedback if they had major concerns. So council needs to continue on. So it's with that, with keeping in that, that I would actually look for a motion to move the recommendation as proposed by staff, and I believe I have a mover in Councillor Stack.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm totally happy to move the recommendation as brought forward by staff.
And I believe I have a seconder in Councillor Don, so now I have, speaking to it, I have Councillor Sieben.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, unfortunately, as proposed, I can't support it at this point, even though I really want to. I would support it with the expressions of interest part of the RCMP site removed, but at this point, that's not what's on the table.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hodge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Once again, I reiterate, I think it's a great plan. I think staff have done a phenomenal job. In no way, shape, or form is a reflection on that. But I will repeat, I'm asking for 1 week, maybe 2, out of a 4-year term. I really don't think that's going to cause a huge problem. But you know what? It's all about the vote and the numbers, and I'm happy whoever it goes. That's how it goes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodge. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor Sieben and Councillor Hodge opposed, and the motion carries. Thank you, Council. So moving on now, we have Mayor and Councillor items, and I believe this time I will start with Councillor Stack.
I'm sorry, I wasn't ready, Your Worship.
Mayor and Councillor items. Councillor Stack, if you have any to share with us.
I've already raised one this morning, but I don't think I have anything further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor DeHart?
Well, I said a lot about the Civic Awards. Please, everybody get their tickets. And also, the Kelowna 2000 Walk for Alzheimer's event is coming up, and they are going to announce the honoree for this year. And that's going to be March 16th at the Alternator Gallery, 421 Costin. So I'm really looking forward. I'm emceeing that event, and I'm really excited about who the honoree is going to be. Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Your Worship, I represented yourself and my council colleagues at Thailand Corner yesterday, and boy, you guys missed a feast. The Consul General was there, and it was lovely. The first stop on their tour through the province, where they were trying to raise the awareness of Thailand and encourage people to visit. But as I said to the Consul General in my little speech, I said, I think Thailand already has a place in the hearts of many Okanagan residents, Kelowna residents particularly, because there are a lot of people in the audience who are looking at how to retire in Thailand. So having said that, it was a great event. Secondly, Your Worship, I will be going to Vancouver on Friday to join our fellow firefighters and others from around the province for the opening of the burn unit, which I'm really looking forward to. It's like Canuck Place for burn victims' families, money raised by the firefighters themselves. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Sieben, and a sports update?
You bet. Thank you, Worship. It was a huge sports weekend outside of Kelowna for some local Kelowna teams, one on a national stage, one on a provincial stage. So congratulations to the UBCO Heat women's team for picking up the bronze medal at the CIS Championships, which is pretty huge. Trinity Western, who they had lost out in the Canada West final, finished and got the silver medal. And U of T, which sounded like they had an undefeated season, edged them out in the semi. So great job. And and they, just for a record too, they beat UBC Vancouver in the bronze medal game. Yes. So tells you where our status of our CIS sports are. And then the KSS Quad A boys basketball team won the provincial championships in Langley. This is absolutely huge. It's never happened before in KSS's history. In fact, no team outside of the island, Lower Mainland, or the Fraser Valley has won the provincial championships since 1980 when Duchess Park and Prince George did it. So it's huge. So congratulations to Coach Harry Parmar. He's built a program there where he's graduating players, some to the NCAA as well as CIS. Just a huge thing. So they had an undefeated season against BC competition and Canadian competition. They only lost to American schools, which one was based out of Los Angeles. So easy to say, probably one of the top high school basketball teams in North America. So congratulations to them.
Well said. Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a great month to be deputy mayor. Not only is it spring, but so much going on. So I'm having a lot of fun. I can't believe all the things that I know you do every month. So this weekend again, I get to play mayor, although I don't have the nice shirts to do it with. But hey, what the heck? But I'm going to be at the 7th Annual Aboriginal Recognition Celebrations at Okanagan College on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to that. And then on Sunday, I'm going to have to dust off my broom or borrow my wife's or something. And, that's going to get it for that one. I'm going to the Canadian Inter-University Sports Curling Championships. And so that would be great. I get to bring messages on behalf of yourself and the city there. So, thanks a lot. Anytime you want to take more time to do other things, I'm glad to fill in, Mr. Mayor. This looks like a great weekend.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that because filling in for me this weekend allows me to spend some time with my wife for my
There you are.
anniversary. So,
because I'm in trouble at home now.
so I'd rather, it's probably better you fill in for me at those events than at my anniversary. So,
I think a few of those as well, but we'll pass on that.
A couple things. So two things that I forgot to mention last time, but the JCs voted to go co-ed about a month ago, and so the membership has grown from 60 to now it's up to 90. My guess it'll be at 100. And I went to the new members night, and basically it's probably the largest gathering of active citizens that we have for our young professionals that's happened. So just to see that group kind of grow, we have all the conversations going online, and they're just looking for a way to get engaged and involved in the community. So I look forward to seeing a potential legacy project come out of that group. So it's just exciting. We talk about being open and inclusive as a council, so it's nice to see that matched in our community. And then we also know that our tech and animation sector is growing gangbusters. We've got animation companies downtown, and I think it was interesting when Bonnie Gratz started the Kelowna Effects, it was actually just a marketing ploy for an event. It wasn't actually the main event. It was just this one in the Black Box Theater. There was supposed to be 30 people show up, and it was the marketing for a theater show. And then it was packed, and she couldn't fit MD else in, and now it's like, I think it's in the 3rd year. And basically, it's interesting, because it's basically she managed to create something, and the small marketing thing became the actual event. So now we've almost got our Comic-Con type thing happening this Saturday. I think Mayor Bajran's going to be doing a guest appearance there from what I hear.
Yep.
It means we've got shows coming, like the Irrelevant show that's part of that presentation, which I think Councillor Stack's going to. It just sums up where we're going as a community when you have a little event, go from like 30 people the first year, and now I'm probably a few thousand people celebrating our animations series, our sector. So just very exciting, and just congratulations, Bonnie, because she puts a lot of work into all this stuff. So just to recognize Bonnie Gratz on there.
thank you, Councillor Don. And I'll just, I have a couple of just comments to make in regards to homelessness and housing, because they have been very hot topics of discussion in our community over the past week, and likely will be throughout the coming months, as we know that homelessness and particularly in the downtown core has been very visible, and I think we all recognize it's probably the worst it's ever been, and we know that we certainly aren't alone in terms of communities that are experiencing this. I know that, for example, the city of Kamloops, there was officials on the radio this morning speaking to it in regards to they've seen an explosion of homelessness in their community, and I think it just given that, it is a national issue, hence why the federal government recently, actually it was last week, held a conference on homelessness. It's why the provincial government has announced $355 million to fund towards housing projects in our province. So there are certainly solutions being worked on by the various levels of government, as well as agencies in our community, and that's what it's going to take. Is there isn't one government that can take this on alone, nor is there one agency in our community or communities that can tackle this alone. It's going to take a collaborative approach. So I think it's just important to remind our public, because we do get these updates throughout the year in our quarterly reports and our year-end review, to sort of mention some of the initiatives and things that are taking place. But just given the recent attention it's received, I thought it was important to just list a few of the things, because this council has never stopped working on ways to generate more housing options for people of all income levels. Contrary to information cited in some reports last week, Kelowna has not stopped taking a four-pillar approach to homelessness. We continue to enforce the laws. People who need treatment continue to receive aid. We continue to work on crime prevention and reduction, and we continue to fund and partner on housing for the homeless. 88 of the Gospel Mission's 108 beds were occupied last night, meaning that there is still room for people in that facility. And In From the Cold provided another 35 beds for those who need overnight shelter between November and April. We currently have 3 developments either under construction or have recently been finished that specifically address the homeless population or people at risk in our community. The Pleasant Vale housing project, thanks to Councillor Stack and the Society of Hope, which is, I believe, 50 units. We have the completion of the Caris Society project at Central Green, which is 30 units for women in need in our community. We have currently under construction the Kelowna Friendship Society, which is building 86 units currently on the Central Green site, and plans are underway for a 78-unit project built by the Okanagan Métis and Aboriginal Housing Society, which is working its way through council right now, as we all know. This council's strategic priorities include investments to make Kelowna a safe, healthy, active, and inclusive community, which is precisely why we made the decision to hire a social issues coordinator, and to show again that these issues are front and center to this council, and we want to be part of collaborating and finding a solution moving forward. Ensuring every Kelowna resident has access to suitable housing is the main goal of the Kelowna Housing Strategy, which Council just updated and endorsed in August. 24 of the 25 recommendations from the 2012 Housing Strategy are either completed or in progress. The city offers financial incentives for affordable housing, the Housing Opportunities Reserve Fund, the Rental Housing Grant Policy, Revitalization Tax Exemptions, and the Permissive Tax Exemption. Under the Rental Housing Grants Policy, the 2016 intake of these grants was the first year we hit our target of 300 new purpose-built rentals. We've put about $2.5 million into the Housing Opportunities Reserve Fund since 2001. Nearly 700,000 of that has come from developer contributions, and the rest from taxes and redirected funds. Funds go to grants and land acquisition for affordable housing. Recognizing the recent announcement, as I mentioned, by the provincial government to allocate $355 million to BC Housing for projects, real estate and planning staff are working with the community to identify land and shovel-ready projects to increase social housing opportunities in our city. Staff and city councils have moved forward with other initiatives, other innovative housing strategy recommendations, such as adding a policy to the OCP that supports housing alternatives for families who can't afford single detached units. And we're always trying new things. For example, one is the industrial residential mix housing project that's happening in the Rutland industrial area. We also now have a policy that supports a greater mix of housing sizes, for example, the micro suites and other options in multi-unit projects. We also have made the process easier to create carriage houses and in-house suites. And it's working. For the first time ever, multiple family residential development units in Kelowna outnumbered single-family units in 2015, 59% to 40%. Compare that to 2011, when the number of single detached units developed accounted for 78% of homes, compared to 21% as multifamily units. Council recognizes our ability to control homelessness is limited, but we can create policies that address needs. But funds, as you know, are not assigned to municipalities from the province or the federal government to fund low-cost housing. We see partnerships with business, government, and nonprofit sectors as critical to a healthy housing supply into the future. In BC, the model for social or affordable housing continues to be for municipalities to provide land on a long-term lease to the province so it can build social housing. These housing units are then managed by societies such as the John Howard Society or the Canadian Mental Health Association, as we've seen in successful projects of the past. In all, Kelowna has 3,000 housing units administered by BC Housing. Kelowna has many dozens of homes in neighborhoods right now that provide supportive and transitional housing for people recovering from personal challenges, and most people in the neighborhood wouldn't even know it exists. They're discreetly located in neighborhoods throughout the city, as I mentioned, and it's a decentralized zoning approach to housing that Kelowna was recognized in 2011 with a national award by the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. And my last point would be that the city provides more than $300,000 in rental housing grants annually and more than $100,000 in social development grants to address the root causes of homelessness. So that's about all I want to say, unless some of my fellow council colleagues would like to add any additional comments. Councillor Sieben.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think you touched on one point, too, that deserves further kind of explanation, or at least commentary towards it, is that I think the general public, and a lot of feedback that I've seen on media sources, kind of tries to lump homelessness into one big catch-all bin. And I think your point that there's 88 beds that were taken at the Gospel Mission last night out of 110, where we see that there's probably still people on the street. So you ask the question of, well, why aren't they taking the bed? And I think we can't just lump everybody into the same group, and there's different needs and different challenges and addiction issues and things like that. And then that's the first rung to getting some type of housing, and then the next ones are the programs we have. So I think it's important to note that when people just sort of say, we're maxed out, we don't have beds, there actually are beds, they're not being taken. I think that's the big question for all of us as citizens to ask, and that's, I know certainly that's what we're doing as council.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you, council. City manager, anything further? Mr. Fleming? Seeing nothing, we will call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you at the public hearing tomorrow evening. Meeting adjourned.
Oh, yeah, no, that's... It's always a balancing act. You never know how much... Yeah, exactly.